The first scream sliced through the hallway like a blade, sharp and sudden, stopping footsteps mid-stride and freezing breath in young chests. It was daytime, between classes, when the school corridors were loud with lockers slamming and laughter echoing off white walls. But this sound was different. It wasn't playful or careless. It was raw fear, and it came from a girl who had learned to stay invisible. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us how powerful compassion can be, take a second right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel and stories. Your support keeps these stories alive. Her name was Mira Halden, and most students barely noticed her existence. She moved through the school like a shadow at noon, technically present, but never truly seen. She kept her head down, her shoulders slightly hunched, her fingers always clutching the straps of her worn backpack, as if it were armor. Mira spoke softly when spoken to, avoided eye contact, and chose seats at the back of classrooms near exits. Not because she planned to run, but because it made her feel safer, knowing she could. Her world was quiet by necessity, built from years of learning that silence attracted less pain. Mira's shyness hadn't come from nowhere. It was shaped by loss and change, by moving schools after her father passed away, by watching her mother work double shifts just to keep their small apartment lit and warm. At home, Mira was strong in her own way, helping with chores, cooking simple meals, pretending everything was fine. But at school, strength looked different. It required confidence, sharp words, or at least allies. What she had was patience, hope, and a belief that if she stayed kind, the world might eventually be kind back. Unfortunately, not everyone believed in kindness. The group that noticed Mira did so not out of curiosity, but cruelty. They were loud, confident, and fed off attention like fire fed on oxygen. At the center was Braylon Cross, a boy whose smile never reached his eyes and whose laughter always carried an edge. Around him orbited others who laughed when he laughed and watched when he watched. To them, Mira was an easy target. Quiet, alone, unlikely to fight back. The kind of person they could toy with for a few seconds of entertainment without consequences. It started small, as it often does. A shoulder bumped a little too hard in the hallway. A notebook knocked from her hands. Snickers behind her as she knelt to pick up scattered papers. Teachers never seemed to be around when it happened, and when they were, the bullies knew how to look innocent. Mira told herself it didn't matter. She told herself she could endure it. She told herself it would stop if she ignored it. But bullies don't stop when ignored. They escalate. On that particular day, sunlight poured through the high windows, casting long rectangles of brightness across the hallway floor. Students were rushing to their next class when Mira felt a sudden grip on her backpack, yanking her backward. Her heart slammed against her ribs as laughter erupted around her. She stumbled, nearly falling, the weight of eyes pressing down on her from every direction. Her face burned with humiliation as her books slid halfway out of her bag. In those seconds, fear flooded her senses. Her thoughts raced, telling her to stay quiet, to endure, to disappear. But something unexpected happened inside her. Maybe it was exhaustion from years of swallowing pain. Maybe it was the memory of her mother's tired smile every night, or her father's voice telling her to stand tall, even when afraid. Whatever it was, it cracked something open inside her chest. Mira tried to pull away. Her hands trembled, but she resisted. The laughter grew louder, feeding on her struggle. Around them, students slowed, forming a loose circle. Some looked shocked, some amused, many unsure. No one stepped in. The air felt thick, heavy with the unspoken question of who would dare to stop it. And then, seconds later, everything changed. What the bullies didn't know was that Mira wasn't truly alone. She had always believed that kindness was invisible, but kindness had been watching her all along. At the far end of the hallway, a new substitute counselor named Rowan Pierce had just turned the corner. Rowan had a calm presence, the kind that made rooms feel quieter without effort. He had once been a shy kid too, and When he saw Mira being cornered, something in his chest tightened with recognition. Rowan didn't shout. He didn't rush in swinging authority like a weapon. He walked forward steadily, his gaze locked on the scene, his posture unyielding. At the same time, a ripple moved through the crowd. A few students shifted uncomfortably. One of Braylon's friends glanced over his shoulder and stiffened. The laughter faltered, just slightly. Mira felt it before she saw it. The grip on her bag loosened. The air around her changed. For the first time, she realized she wasn't invisible in that moment. People were watching, really watching, and not all of them with cruel eyes. Her breath came in short bursts, but she stood her ground, even as tears threatened to spill. Rowan stepped fully into the circle, his presence cutting through the tension. His calm wasn't weakness, it was control. He spoke firmly, not loudly, and his words carried weight because they were grounded in truth. He addressed the situation, naming what was happening without accusation, making it impossible to laugh it off. The hallway had gone silent now, the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. The bullies, so confident seconds earlier, began to shrink under that attention. Braylon's smirk faded as he realized this wasn't a teacher who would look away or accept excuses. Other staff members, drawn by the sudden stillness, appeared nearby. Phones that had been raised to record slowly lowered. The power dynamic flipped, not with violence, but with exposure. Mira felt her knees weaken, but she didn't fall. Rowan positioned himself slightly in front of her, not blocking her view, but standing with her. It was a simple gesture, but to Mira it felt monumental. Someone was choosing her side openly. Someone believed she deserved protection. Consequences followed swiftly. Not dramatic, not cruel, but firm and undeniable. The bullies were escorted away, their earlier bravado replaced with panic. Apologies spilled out, messy and rushed, not born from understanding, but fear. They begged for mercy not because Mira had hurt them, but because for the first time, their actions had been seen clearly, without distortion. As the hallway slowly returned to life, Mira stood there, shaken, but standing. Students who had never spoken to her before offered quiet words of support. One girl handed her a fallen notebook. Another gave her a small, nervous smile. It wasn't a parade of redemption, but it was something new. Recognition. That afternoon, Mira sat in her last class staring out the window as sunlight painted the trees outside in gold. Her heart still ached, but beneath the ache was something else. Relief, validation, a fragile sense of worth. She realized that standing up didn't always mean shouting or fighting back. Sometimes it meant surviving long enough for help to arrive, and having the courage to accept it. In the days that followed, the school felt different. Not perfect, but changed. Teachers were more attentive in the halls. Students were more aware of who stood alone. Braylon and his group kept their distance, their power, broken not by revenge, but accountability. Mira still spoke softly, still preferred the back row, but she walked a little taller. Her steps were steadier. Her silence was no longer rooted in fear. Mira began visiting the counseling office during lunch, not because she was broken, but because she wanted to heal. Rowan listened without judgment, helping her untangle years of swallowed pain. Slowly, Mira learned that her kindness wasn't a weakness. It was a strength that had survived cruelty without becoming cruel itself. Weeks later, Mira volunteered to help tutor younger students after school. She understood what it felt like to be small in a loud world, and she wanted to be the person she once needed. Watching her laugh quietly with a group of kids over math problems, no one would have guessed how close she had come to disappearing into herself. If this story has touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you of someone you were or someone you know, please take a moment now to like the video, share it, and leave a comment. Your engagement tells stories like this, that they matter. And before this video ends, I have one special request for you. Comment one word that describes how this story made you feel. Just one word. Let it be your voice for Mira, and for every shy soul who's still learning to stand. Because sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do isn't fighting back. Sometimes, it's holding on long enough to be seen.